What an afternoon in San Francisco. You can see the Golden Gate behind me. Just as I'm about to talk about Evan Anderson and other gems that the 49ers picked up during this recent draft weekend. But Evan Anderson, just go put on the tape. This guy will probably remind you, stature-wise, of a larger DJ Jones. He's 324 to 326 pounds at about 6 feet, out of Florida Atlantic. I mean, just an absolute fire hydrant nose tackle type. Listen, the 49ers run defense tumbled last year. Whenever they've had trouble on run defense, part of the equation has been a lack of an anchor in the middle. And I think that they signed Evan Anderson as an undrafted free agent and gave him $280,000 guaranteed. That's a big guarantee because they think that he has the potential to help fix some of this problem. They didn't draft a defensive tackle. I think that was on the table. The draft went in different directions. You never know which way the draft is going to go. Remember, it's like a game. You call plays, you pick draft, you pick guys as you go through the draft. You don't always get to the play call that you want to get to, but they were able to clean up the lack of a defensive tackle in the draft with this guy, Evan Anderson, who he lost weight in college. When you put on his high school tape, he was much more than 326 pounds. The drawback here, I say he looks like a bigger DJ Jones. I don't think he moves quite as well off the ball as DJ Jones. But remember, for DJ, it also was a challenge of chiseling the body, losing some weight, staying in shape, because that's going to correlate with your get-off at the line of scrimmage. Evan Anderson wasn't drafted because the knock on him is that the get-off isn't great. He's got to continue working on his body to make sure that he can be explosive off the line. Because guess what? Guys this big, they're a dying breed of a sort in the NFL. Aaron Donald was a very, very light defensive tackle. There's rumors that he even played part of his career, much of his career, at 260, which is insane. But he used his quickness to get the job done on the inside. You'd bolt around those guards. Those interior linemen would have trouble with him. The guy that handled him best probably was Daniel Brunskill. That's because he was a lighter, quicker lineman. Anyway, anytime the league moves far in one direction, there's a chance for a reversion in the other direction. And with offensive linemen getting smaller, offensive linemen getting quicker, somebody like Evan Anderson, if he can get quick enough but maintain a lot of the size that he has, he can overpower people. And I think that that's what the 49ers are counting on. It's not that big of a bet, right? $280,000 guaranteed in the large scale of things is not a lot, but it is a sizable guarantee for an undrafted free agent. So Evan Anderson out of Florida Atlantic. I got my depth chart here as we go through some of the 49ers undrafted free agent gems. He's got a chance to be one. You know who else has a chance to be UDFA gem? Mason Klein, the tight end. This college basketball player first. 3 years of college basketball at Ferris State in Michigan. That was before he played college football. Then you put on the tape on the football field and Mason Klein looks like a natural. I mean, the speed at which he adjusted to the college football game as far as catching the ball, to me, is remarkable. I mean, he's taken big hits, and that's something that you don't just learn how to do overnight. I think you've got to be born with the courage and the ability to catch the football when you get hit. And Mason Klein is doing this all over his film. He knows how to high point the football. That's the basketball background. You see, Tony Gonzalez, one of the greatest tight ends of all time, has a basketball background. So basketball background is something that's good at the position, but you can only fully make the transition to being a good NFL caliber tight end if you can also block. It's just as important, if not more important, to be able to block. And I think that's where Mason Klein still has a ways to go. And I mean, you can't really tell off of this is receiving highlight tape, the stuff that we get to watch online. We don't get to see his blocking highlight tape. The coaches have a look at that. I'm going to study Mason Klein a little bit more, but I've talked to people, and the book on him is that he's got to turn into a better blocker. He's got to develop the leverage techniques in football that are unique to football and not to basketball. And if you can do that, the 49ers can potentially finally have the Robin to George Kittle's Batman. Charlie Werner only caught 11 passes in 4 years. The blocking was fine for him, but boy, this 49ers offense got better with the addition of Ricky Pearsall, another weapon for Brock Purdy. Imagine if the second tight end in this offense was also a receiving threat. It hadn't really been the case at all Maybe when Jordan Reed and George Kittle were both healthy at the same time, which was almost never in 2020. But developing a secondary receiving threat would be absolutely huge for the 49ers. And it looks like Blind, with his vertical, with his ability to high point the football, with his ability to hold on to these balls, he just gets trucked. I don't care if this is lower level football or not. He's impressive as far as the ball skills go and the courage goes. If he's able to combine the blocking threat with this burgeoning receiving talent, I think he could be somebody that really, really can help the 49ers at that tight end 2 position. Also, when you look at this undrafted free agent class, I think it was just pedigree-wise, absolute steal for the 49ers to be able to pick up Drake Nugent. Nugent is a center. He was an all Big Ten player at Michigan. So this is the national championship team. They went 15-0. This guy was the center, and he was an all-conference player. And they're able to get him an undrafted free agency. You know, people are going to talk a lot about Dominic Pooney. They're going to talk about Jarrett Kingston. They're going to talk about those 2 guys because they're the drafted 49ers offensive linemen. But don't forget these undrafted free agents. And when you look at what Drake Nugent has been able to do, I think he's impressive athletically. I think that obviously he's undersized. That's why he didn't get drafted. But the 49ers have run with smaller linemen before. They got one starting right now in Jake Brendel. Undersized, yet really athletic guy. But center, to be honest, it's way more. Once you hit a certain threshold of physical capability, and if Drake Nugent was an all Big Ten player playing for a national champion team, a 15-0 Wolverine team, I think he's hit that bare minimum. Once you can do that, it is about the cerebral aspect of the game. It's about identifying safety rotations. It's about setting protections. You are the battery in tandem with the quarterback, and that's going to be Brock Purdy. The 49ers really struggled in the Super Bowl. A lot of people talk about, Brock Purdy needs to start calling his own protections because too much is riding through the center, and the 49ers gave up 9 unblocked pressures on blitzes, and I think a lot of that, was a problem that could be traced back to the communication from that center position. So if you can rest easy there, knowing that things are going to be streamlined and the protection's going to be taken care of, in this Shanahan system, because of the way that it operates, because of how important that center position is, you've already won half the battle, right? You've already made huge strides toward winning that battle. That's why Shanahan coached Alex Mack at 3 different spots, in Cleveland, Atlanta, and then San Francisco. He wanted Alex Mack after working with him once because he knows how much peace of mind good center play can bring you. All in all, you have to say, when you look at who the 49ers brought in after the draft, I think it really complemented what they did during the draft, right? Divide this up into 3 phases. Free agency, where the 49ers went after defense especially, but they really went after acute needs. They wouldn't enter the draft with acute needs. They wanted to fill the floor, right? So first they signed those 4 defensive linemen, 2-year deals, 2 defensive ends, 2 tackles. That was a big deal. That allowed them to not have to worry about the defensive line as much in the NFL draft. But they also signed somebody like Trent Taylor to make sure that punt returner wasn't totally vacant, so that they could just ease off and focus on taking bigger swings in the draft. So they took care of defense and acute needs in the draft, and then they turned around and focused a little bit more on offense in free agency. They focused on defense and acute needs in free agency, and then they turned around with a little bit of breathing room and focused on offense and bigger swings in the draft. They had 10 picks. They consolidated that down to 8 because I think it's going to be tough to make this roster. It's one of the most loaded teams in the NFL, and they hit on so many big needs. I mean, receiver was a big need, and you can't just define need by something that they absolutely needed for 2024. You need to give yourself contractual flexibility with some expensive contracts like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk in 2025. So Ricky Pearsall hit a need at wide receiver. They got Malik Mustafa, the safety. Renardo Green, the cornerback, that's a 2025 need as well. The running back, Isaac Guerrero, they needed to fill that room. That of all these positions I talked about before the draft as being needs, they went ahead and got the best player available at several positions of need, including the offensive lineman, Dominic Pooney. Then at the positions they quite didn't have enough picks to get, they went to undrafted free agency. So you see that 4th quarterback, for example, when they went out and got Tanner Mordecai. I talked about him in another video. High upside, athletic guy for a QB4, right? And obviously they got Evan Anderson, who did that big front flip into his pool, had a good time celebrating that $280,000 signing bonus.